how's your sex life? How's your wieners, your vajayjays, all the things that you use when you're having sex? And the reason I ask is because no one else does. And that's why you're here listening to the Sex 101 podcast. It's hard to communicate your sexual desires, your needs, your wants. So we're here for you and your partner. This show is dedicated to improving sexual communication and removing the taboos about sex and sexual intimacy. Dr. Stormy has a wealth of experience, knowledge, and helpful advice that will take your lovemaking to the next level. And I'm here to make you laugh and show you that even rock stars don't know enough about sex. So put on your headphones if you're at work and let us make sex better for you. All right, we're back with Sex 101 again. Man, we're getting regular now. It's funny because we've been doing this podcast for a little bit, and now we're like kind of in a mode. We're vibing, we're chiming in, we're doing stuff, we're creating. I'm really digging the schedule we got. And it's kind of cool because today is going to be our first two-parter. And it's because this subject, there's so much information, and I have to give Stormy all the credit. You know, you're going to get all this information from Stormy. I'm going to be learning here with you. I'll be the everyman that's like, oh, really? Oh. And the episode today is 8 things you must know to start role-playing tonight. And I'm telling you.
Yeah, tonight. Started tonight.
there is so much information here because role-playing, I've learned a lot. I can't wait to hear because on this episode, we're going to be talking about the surprising stats with role-play because they are surprising. The benefits of role-play, the 8 steps that you can start tonight to successfully start role-playing right now. And then we're going to answer a couple of listener questions at the end anyway. So I'm really excited to get into this because I'm a big guy. And I'm not, I feel like me putting on like an Aladdin costume to turn on my partner. Just see how you're laughing? That's what I feel is going to happen. But, you know, it's interesting because I had this conversation with my girlfriend, and I know we're going to get into this in a minute, so I'm just alluding to it. But when she was like, why is it always the ladies have to dress up? Why can't guys dress up, you know? And so there might be some surprising stats there, but
there is. And by the way, the giggling at maybe the Aladdin costume would be super hot.
Your wish is my command.
Right? I mean, you kind of towing into like the submissive, like whatever you want, my lady, you know.
I'll just look like a large blue man group if I do the Disney Aladdin, so I don't want to do that, but we'll see.
We'll see where this goes, right? No, I love this. I mean, really, if you think of role play, right, it is like the game of seduction, right? It is a fun tool. It is meant to be playful. It is meant to be explorative. It is meant to be kinky and sexy, right? So, like, let's just start off by saying that, like, that's the intention for this. You know, it does not have to be like, and it's just funny what you just said about why does the woman have to always dress up? I mean, that is kind of a wives' tale, right? That's and it also can be a barrier to keep people from getting into role play. So, I mean, right, role play is really just acting out a sexual fantasy with consent with your partner in a imagined scenario. And that's what role playing is. And it's really people are thinking, oh, do I have to be like, award-winning actress or actor to do role play? Like, not at all. Like, this is actually, we want to make these steps really simple that you can, and powerful, that you can start tonight and set you up for success in role play. But yeah, just a little bit about role play. You know, I always start with the statistics, but 29% of couples have tried it, according to research. And this is the part, which I actually thought that was high. I would have guessed a little lower than that. So that's awesome. But that also means 70% haven't, right? And so if you're out there listening and you've tried it before, hopefully these tips help you even explore it even more. And if you haven't, hopefully these tips give you the confidence and the education to try it. But one thing I thought was so interesting, and this one was really surprising to me. I love the research and the statistics, but is that 1 in 4 couples reported in this one research study that they wanted to try it. So, you know, you've got 25% of couples that want to try it, and they felt like the reason they didn't is they didn't know how to approach it with their partner. So that was kind of like the block and the barrier. But 25% of couples, you know, statistically want to try role play and aren't having conversations about it. So true to Sex 101 podcast, we wanted to give you guys the information, arm you with some education and some concrete tips to make it successful if you want to explore that in your partnership.
Yeah, 100%. It really does sound fun. I love the idea of fantasy and with your partner, like doing some kind of fantasy together where you both can kind of lose yourself. Like, I've been in a band touring forever. And one time as a joke, our bass player put on this white mask on stage, and it was you should have seen him moving around the stage, how free he was. And I was like, wait a minute.
Totally.
There's something about like, you know, because you can get insecure with people seeing your face or knowing you or seeing your reactions, but like a costume or something, if you can really get out of your head for a minute, because that's what we said, that your brain oftentimes is the biggest hindrance that you have to great sex. A costume, an outfit, a fantasy can really open up the door for you. So I'm excited to learn.
I love that story, right? And also, like you just told with that story with your bandmate, like all of a sudden a different person, right? And it's not it's the same person, but a different part of him came through that the mask allowed him to tap into. And so one of the things I like to say about role play is it's really like one of the reasons I love it for couples and I love practicing it myself is that it's the role, not you, right? So back to your Aladdin thing, it's like it's the Aladdin, it's not Toby, right? It's like right. It's the role that you're trying on and that you're literally putting on. Maybe it is a mask, maybe it is not, whatever. But it's the role, not you. And that gives you more freedom to express, gives you more freedom to play, kind of takes off some of the shame and self-criticality that we can have when we're trying on different parts of ourselves in the bedroom.
Right. 100%. All right, let's get to some of these the steps you can take to start role playing tonight, because that's what I think everybody's really wanting to hear. Where do you want to start at?
Well, I mean, I think like so. If you think about like why would you want to start, right? Let's just think about why would you want to start. Well, one of the obvious is the most cited reason is that it spices it up, right? In long-term committed partnerships, monogamous partnerships, sex can get sort of stale, let's say, or it can lose the novelty piece. And so this is a piece to add novelty, and novelty adds excitement, and excitement adds passion. So that's one of the benefits, is a way to spice it up. Another one that I really love and why we want to encourage you to talk to your partner about this is exactly that, talking to your partner. So it increases communication, right? Role play is always consensual. It is, so you're going to talk to your partner about what roles are interesting, what roles are exciting to you. So it's a really great communication tool for partnerships. And then the third benefit is that it is really a tool to increase trust. It's very intimate, right? Yeah. If you, let's say, are going to try on a role, maybe your partner is the only person who's ever gotten to experience you or seen you in this role. So it's incredibly intimate, very sacred, and helps to build trust. And that is always a great thing in relationship, right? And then the fourth benefit is that it is let's just say it's a way to put like a toe into fantasy exploration, right? It's a pretty loving, nurturing, gentle way to start to begin to explore fantasies together in your partnership, because it can be like, oh, I always recommend, like, if you see something on TV that you're like, wow, that's super hot, like to be like to your partner, like, that's super hot, like, you'd look really good in a cop uniform or whatever, you know? So it gives you a way to start to explore your fantasies. So
yeah, that's awesome. Okay, list those again, because you went through them quick. I want to make sure I'm writing these down.
These are the first 4 benefits. So spicing it up.
Yeah.
Increasing communication, a good communication tool, also a tool to increase trust in your relationship, which leads to better sex, leads to better relationship. And then the fourth one, we'll save the other 4 for part 2, but is a good way to begin to explore fantasy in your partnership.
Yeah, I like that idea, because you said what was the percentage at the beginning? Like 29% of people have tried it or whatever. So that now that leaves 71% of people haven't, but that doesn't mean they don't want to. I think a lot of the hiccups comes from you feel dumb. Like that's what I was kind of joking in the beginning, but I think oftentimes like the female body just lends itself to, gosh, you put on a nurse outfit, you look so hot. You know what I mean? Or oh my gosh, whatever you're dressing up as, like you said, any of those, a guy, like it feels like, I'm a fireman, but I know I'm not a fireman. And I think firemen are really cool, so I don't even feel cool. And and so I think sometimes is it embarrassment that kind of hinders, like, or do you just feel silly? What is that initial thing that pushback on the beginning side of it where you go, I just don't know if I want to do it?
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great perspective, great question, because I think there's both self barriers and couple relational barriers, right? So the self barrier might be like, I feel stupid, or I don't feel good enough my body to put on the costume, which, by the way, we'll get to that in tips, but you do not have to wear a costume. Okay. That's just one option. Yeah. But then the other thing is there might be relational barriers of like, I don't know how to even approach this with my partner, or how do I begin to bring this up as something I'm excited to try. Right. So there can be self barriers and relational barriers. And we want to give you the tools to move through both of those so that you can be in a place to be able to explore and try role play with your partner if it's something you both consent to.
Yeah. Awesome. Man, I still, I'm learning a lot here. So this is pretty good. Are we wanting to do some tips as well, or we want to save
Yeah,
those?
let's do some tips.
Yeah,
No,
let's do it.
let's do 4 tips. So,
Okay.
obviously, number one is going to be bring it up to your significant other, right? So, and it's the hardest one.
Yeah.
Okay, it's also one of the barriers to start, right? So the best way to start is to just start. Okay. So, I know I say this in almost every episode about the power of communication, but I would not bring it up in the moment. Like I wouldn't like be like, I'm going to keep going back to your Aladdin example, but I wouldn't like pop out of the bathroom like ta-da in your Aladdin costume without having discussed it with your partner.
Yeah, you might
right.
scare
So
them.
There is some planning, which is part of the sexiness of it, but there is also just bringing it up non-sexually, like bringing it up. Like I said, if you see something on TV, it's a great way to, like, you see something in real life to be like, that's kind of sexy. Like, how would you feel about like playing with that in the bedroom, like a little role play, right? So you can bring it up when you see something that it feels exciting. Another really great way, that's a gentle way, that's a common way to bring it up is like, hey, babe, I had this dream last night, and this is what happened in the dream. Like, would you ever be like, how do you feel about exploring that in real life? Like in a safe way and that sort of thing. So those are 2 kind of tips for like bringing it up. So bringing it up is obviously the first and the most important step, right? To actually be able to be in practice for this. So
yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, you're right. Just surprise attacking somebody. There's no chance that either they're not going to have a scared reaction or a laughing reaction. It's not like you won't be super sexy to start out, and in some ways you're not including that your partner, right? You're not including them like on the decision of maybe they want you to dress up a certain way, not just how you want to dress up. So you got to start somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. That's a great point. It's like, it's a mutual fantasy, right? So maybe one person is like leading on like, hey, I think like the whole like hot maid thing might be fun to role play or whatever. And then your partner might be like, nah, like I kind of actually think I'm feeling a little bit more like naughty nurse, like, right? So you get to like decide, it's something you decide together, right? And there's no right or wrong, which brings me to the second tip to like have this be successful for you all to start tonight, is to create a safe zone in your bedroom, like to literally be like, hey, we're going to role play tonight. We're going to try this. And the safe zone is no judgment, obviously, no shaming. You can laugh together, but you do not laugh at, right? There's a huge difference. So you can totally laugh together in role play, and you might laugh. And then the other thing is that it's like create a vault. So part of creating the safe zone in the bedroom is to say, like, whatever happens here stays here. I would never, like, this is absolutely in our vault, sealed in confidentiality, because your partner, let's say, often you might be exploring like an alter ego, right? So you might be exploring part of yourself that you're like, I don't know about that, putting that forth in life. And to be able to know that is not going to leak out, like your girl, your woman's not going to share it over, like at a girls' night over a glass of wine, or like, oh my God, when Toby dressed up like Aladdin, by the way, keep sticking. But and then the same vice versa, like over guys' night, it's not going to be like shooting pool and be like, oh my God, my wife was like the slutty nurse or whatever, right? So just knowing that you have that confidentiality is really important. Like that's tip number 2.
Yeah, totally. That would be one where I'd want to feel, you're right. That just builds that trust. And you're like, hey, I'll try. Like, if you feel real trust, you can try things and it fails, or it's funny, or it totally works, and you feel the comfort to try those things. Because otherwise you're going to be more guarded and reserved and not want to mess around with it.
Right. Exactly. Right. And then that actually brings me to tip number 3, which is that I kind of mentioned already, like you might want to toe into like your alter ego. Like you might want to toe into like, it can be a great place to start if you're like, hey, I don't even know where to start with role play, but it might be like, what part of myself, would be really edgy for me to put out there, or do I maybe not feel so comfortable with? So let's say you're very soft spoken, you have a very gentle nature. It might be part of your role play. It might be exciting and erotic to you and your partner to have you be like totally dominant, to be like very powerfully dominant. And that might be like, and your partner might be like, yeah, swoon, right? Like, so you have these conversations, but it's just knowing that you might want to get curious about an alter ego sort of piece, a piece of yourself that you don't put forth normally in the world, might be a good place to be like, yeah, I actually think that's super hot. And then interestingly enough, your partner often will be like, oh, that'd be super fun. I've never experienced you that way. Like, let's try it,
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. That makes so much sense.
Yeah. And then I think that, you brought up a couple times the costume thing. So that's going to be my 4th tip to be successful in role play is start small. Okay. Start with words, right? Yeah. You do not, it is one thing I hear all the time from my clients that keeps them from role playing is they think they have to, like I said, to be award-winning actors or actresses, or have like elaborate sets, or makeup and all these things. It's like, actually start small. So start with words, right? So you can role play a scene that you both have consented to with just words, right? So maybe it is the naughty nurse, or the strangers is a very common one, right? Like, so to acting like total strangers, like that is, you can do that with just words. So if you take the costume and the props off the table, it might give you the space to feel comfortable to start.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know. I know that fans are going to cut that out or send me on a Aladdin head, put my head on Aladdin's body coming up now. I always have this fear now whenever I am talking on this podcast and I'm going to say something and somebody's going to make a meme out of it immediately. They probably will.
Totally. So, oh my gosh, you have to send me the Aladdin Toby when that happens. But hopefully that's done. It's really part of what I love about our podcast is we share from our own stories and our own lives. Like you mentioned how much you learn. I learned so much in this podcast too, right? I get to today, as I was kind of researching and looking up some statistics on role play, right? I have the clinical stories and I have my own personal stories and I have stories from friends, but the research, it's it really helps me to learn the research. And also just because I do have a boyfriend, a partner, gives us great conversation stuff. I'm like, hey, is there any other areas we want to role play it? So I learn right there along with our listeners and our watchers too. And I'm so super grateful for that.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we're touching on here that I think is just so important, and you've said this several times just during this episode, it really is. This is a great way to build trust because you are being a little different, a little goofy, a little vulnerable, or maybe you're being sexier than you really have been. Maybe you're wearing something that is more revealing, or it's a costume that really only this one other person is going to see. And it really can create a lot of trust. This is something that you two do together that's really fun for you and you can explore that fantasy. It didn't just have to be here comes the cleaning lady, the maid, or and that's it. You can explore it in a way that there's some story, there's some creativity to it. You're actually having fun. There's a lot that you can do with it. And I think building that trust is the key component with role play here. You can't just go into it with, put on a hot outfit and we have sex. That won't really turn anybody on. But if you can actually get into a little bit of a character, forget about you for a minute, be the character that your partner actually wants, that really has to be a turn on because it's still you. It's still you. You're still the fireman or the Aladdin. It's still you. So.
Yeah, totally. Right. And that's actually a good point. I think another barrier, I hadn't thought about that till you just said that. A barrier to beginning can be well, what if my partner only can get turned on by the hot fireman costume or whatever, or the naughty nurse out costume. That is not how it works, right? It's another aspect of your sexuality you're exploring together. Your partner loves you, chooses you, is having sex with you. This just gives you a place to play and explore, right? Yeah. It's why it's when people think about when actors are studying a role, they really get into the role, they really learn about the role, and you get to try this role on for the duration of the scene, right? Yeah. So I think it's a great tool, and it's a very underutilized tool in my opinion.
100%. All right. So we got 8 more with the tips and the benefits on the next episode. So make sure you tune in there. But I want to get to Stump Stormy and our listener questions right now. So
all right.
All right.
It's time to Stump Stormy.
Okay, so Stormy, I thought this would be interesting. So I was thinking about when I was thinking about role play, honestly, I was wondering, what do people look up on porn the most? What are those things? What is the thing they're searching for the most? And I came across this is from the Daily Mail. Pornhub released all their stats. And so I thought it'd be interesting for you to guess what is the most searched porn topic, most search. What is the top search in each state? Your state, Utah. What do you think is the number one?
Oh my gosh, in Utah. Oh my gosh, I love this. Well, that changes my answer. So I'm going to think the most commonly searched would be something like stepmom or stepmom, something like hot stepmom or something.
It says Mormon.
Oh wow! Yeah,
isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That is the thing that they searched
there you go.
Sexually. That's really interesting. That it stays in even with that context. They have such a huge Mormon population, and to retain that because
is so funny.
none of the Souths are Christian.
It's also very on brand for Utah that even in porn, it's
even the porns. We stick to what we know in Utah. All right, so
very brand consistent.
So so the state I'm living in now, Illinois, it was actually dirty talk was the most I thought that was interesting. Verbal.
Surprising.
But the state I grew up in, South Carolina, What do you think that one is? Right in that.
Oh.
This one's interesting to me that this came up.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know on that one. I mean, I think if you look at overall, like I said, the stepbrother, stepmother fantasies are all are up high. And then there's a lot of the stranger, so the FedEx guy or the masseuse or a lot of stranger sort of things. But
South Carolina was gilf. That's a grandmother I'd like to.
No, it was not.
Yes,
it was not.
Not MILF. They went, nah, scooting on by. Y'all are too young for us. Get out of here with that young stuff in South Carolina.
I was wait, did my earphones go out? Did he say
Gil.
MILF or
Gil? It could, maybe that. I guess that's probably a grandma, not a grandpa. I think that's what that is. So I thought that was really interesting. I know we have an older population down there, so people go to South Carolina, Charleston to retire. So maybe that's what it is. But then
older women is a really commonly searched one too, older woman, with the MILF and beyond. So
yeah, I know some of these are super interesting. Like Texas was panties, Oregon was furry, Wisconsin was pegging.
Yeah.
I was like, man, some of these are really interesting. There's some wild ones on here too that
I'm sure.
So I'll leave those out for this episode. But yeah, so I thought that was really
that's awesome.
I did not expect those two to be from our home states.
Utah and Guelph.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We did our Stump Stormy. Let's go to listener questions.
Let's do it.
Have a question? We've got answers. Here's this week's listener question.
Okay, these are some good ones today. So I got two hot ones for you. All right, this comes from She Drives Me Crazy. Why do I have a low sex drive? My wife wants sex way more than me, but I cannot match her desire.
Well, I think that's a great question. Thank you for the courage to ask it, right? Because there's a stigma. So let me start saying libido is your desire to have sex or sexual interactions, and it is not a set point. It doesn't matter, man, woman, non-binary. It is not a set point. It waxes and wanes depending on the person, depending on the day, and that doesn't matter about the gender. So because it's not a set point, it's really common to have what we call mismatched libidos in a partnership, right? So maybe your partner's is higher than yours one day and yours is lower. Maybe it switches. Maybe consistently one is the high libido person and the one's the lower libido person, but there's no right or wrong. The issue is if it feels like a struggle or a concern in your relationship. And so that's when I think it's great to be asking the questions and getting the support. But it is also really common there's a stigma that it's often the woman who has a lower libido. It is statistically true, but less and less so. It's that gap is closing. But 1 in 5 men, that's how common it is. 1 in 5 men report having a low libido at some point in their life, right? And so that's really common. So you're not alone. There's nothing broken or wrong with you, to the listener asking it. But I think, if you're asking about having the communication about with your partner of hey, I'm noticing that your sex drive is higher than mine. I want to talk about it, right? So first and foremost, like I say to almost every question, communication about it. The second thing is noticing, is it a consistent problem? Is it occasionally? Does it feel like it's impacting your relationship? So getting curious about your low libido. And then thirdly would be rule out medical. I always say rule out the medical issues. That is easy to do. Go talk to your doctor. Right? But that might take some courage just to be saying that, especially as a man. That could be the stigma of well, I always want to have sex day or night, right? I am man, right? And that's such bullshit. So let go of that. But talking to your physician, so ruling out some of the medical causes that are very common and can be quickly ruled out. And then, besides that, they say that if there's no medical cause, looking at your stress levels, your sleep, your diet, and your exercise. Those are 4 areas that will help man or woman to increase sex drive. So how is your stress level? What's your diet like? How healthy are you eating? And what's your exercise level? Those are kind of 4 more holistic ways to really help you feel into and grow your sex drive.
Yeah. I think too, it's tough for people sometimes because honestly, it always feels like somebody feels rejected. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it really isn't that. The person isn't in the mood. Now, obviously it can turn into that. There's relationships where people are withholding sex or just not into each other sexually. And that can be, it is hurtful. But this isn't your partner trying to be hurtful. And that's the main thing too. I would be, like Stormy always says, It's always that communication. Make sure that she knows, of course you love her. Of course you're attracted to her. It's just, this is just a part like me. I can only run so far. I wish to God I could run 10 miles every day. But after a little bit, I slow down. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna enjoy this walk now. So, and that's okay. That doesn't make me a bad person. And I'm not, if I'm have a running partner and they need to keep running, that's okay. So I think there's things you can do. And I actually also think, because I was just reading the stat, and Stormy, you might have talked about it too, but we might have talked about it on the last episode, the one before. Go back and listen, folks, if you haven't. But there's an idea where sometimes if you just initiate a little bit, you do become aroused and turned on.
Oh, totally.
Like maybe it's just petting each other a little bit, massage or a kiss, right? Like you can really get there, and you didn't know you could. You find energy in
that's great.
directions. So.
Totally. And I think what you said there was so great is like being willing to not have it. Like if you're not turned on, to have it be like a hard no. It doesn't mean you have to have sex when you don't want to. That's not consent. Right. But it's more of like being open to and expanding your sense of foreplay. Maybe you just fool around. Like when make out sessions. Like as we get older, they totally like we don't do them as often, and they are vastly underrated, right? So maybe you just make out, or like you said so beautifully, Toby. It's like also how you deliver the message, right? Like. I'm not in the mood, or I have a headache, or just rolling over and turning your back to your partner, she might feel rejected. Yeah. Same goes if the woman is not in the mood. But instead saying to your partner, like, I had a really stressful day. Like, I am not feeling my sexiness right now. Yeah. You are so beautiful. And I would love to just like hold you or kiss you, or like, you know what, actually like tomorrow morning, like I'd love to ravage you or whatever. Like, it's like you can, it's so much in the delivery, which again comes back to communication, right? But she might be feeling rejected. You might be like, what's wrong with me? And then you both are turning your backs emotionally, logistically and energetically to each other, rather than using that as a bridge to each other.
Yeah, 100%. And what you say, you're right. Like, I promise you, I'm at an age now where for a long time, I didn't really do this much, if at all. And I'm just right now blown away by how good Frenching is. Like just Frenching out, and it seems like it shouldn't be, because like, you just had cabbage and sausage and now you're going to rub your tongues all over each other. So brush your teeth, people. But I'm serious. It like just little things like that. Just try, like, a makeout session is hot. It's just so you hot. Too, and you're doing all this stuff, and your tongues are rubbing against you. And in the normal state of mind, you're like, I don't really want to do that. But when you're in it, you're like, whoa, man, this is awesome.
Totally. It is so hot. I love that. I think we should bring it back. We should bring out like the makeout sessions back to, to people our age and older.
100%. Sure. It's so fun. All right. Got another question here. This comes from You Said a Mouthful. Are there any benefits to swallowing?
So I was like, it was funny when I read that one. I love that question. But so it is a very personal decision, right? And I have, worked with many clients who are like, I don't like it. It makes me gag. I don't swallow. I only spit. This is, my examples of with my clients. These are female clients. And then I've also worked with men who are like, I don't care if my partner spits or swallows, or sometimes they're like, I really think it's super sexy when they swallow, right? So again, it's individual and it's varies couple to couple. So have the conversation with your partner, like, do they prefer, which one do they prefer? Do they not care? And then to get curious about why, right? So, because then you have like choice. But as far as like health benefits, which is what the question was about, right? So it is really just sperm and fluid, right? So, and 80% of it's fluid, right? So, but there's like the wives' tale that it's a bunch of protein. So that actually is a wives' tale. You'd have to like drink a lot of cum swallow a lot of cum to like get your daily protein, okay, which I don't advise. So
it's kind of keto, but not really, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it is, there is some protein in it, but it is very much a wives' tale as far as like it's a good source of protein. Yeah. But there is some vitamins and minerals in it. There's some zinc in it, so there it can be like considered like a natural multivitamin, but again, in the quantity, it's less so. There's also some studies that it is a good natural antidepressant, that it's a good natural sleep aid. There is some soundness to that. But when you're talking about like a teaspoon is the average ejaculate, like it's such a small amount that it's really more about like preference and what turns you both on. So I think the health benefits in my mind would be like, not the reason to choose to swallow. Like there might be other reasons for you to choose to swallow. Some women that I know and have worked with are like, I find it super hot to swallow because I'm totally in control. I'm in charge, right? Yeah. And maybe her guy cares, maybe he doesn't, but having the conversation about it. But health benefits would be yes there, but minimal, I would say.
Yep. I understand. I think basically it boils down to, it seems kind of hot that somebody would do that for you. You know what I mean? Like that, it to me has never been, but it should never be that big of a deal. I don't really understand that part, because it's just so quick anyway. And if somebody, maybe do you think if somebody spits it out, it feels like rejection or something, or like you taste bad or something like that?
Yeah.
You think? And
right.
But that is kind of what it is.
Right. So, I mean, I try to flip it on the other side. Like, right. If a man was giving you cunnilingus and like immediately got up to go wash it out of his mouth, I would be like, not take that very well. Right. Yeah. So, right. And granted, it's different because I'm not ejaculating. Well, unless I'm ejaculating, but you're not like ejaculating fluid. But I think it's really like, it's funny because one of the things, so men statistically prefer a woman to swallow, but not everyone, like I said. And sometimes they actually are like, oh, spitting is way hotter, right? Because you can do it, like there's a lot of spitting in porn and such like that. But also, a lot of women, they're like, oh, I don't like the taste of it. And that one's an interesting one for me, because I would say like, it's curious because if you're going to spit, unless you're going to like literally have a rag right there, you got to like hold it in your mouth and get up and go to the bathroom. So it's actually in your mouth for longer, the taste, than if you just swallow an average of a teaspoon. But it's really there's not a right or wrong there. It really is personal and it's relational. And it's, again, a thing that I would say, I'm going to go with, I don't know any statistics on this, but I'm going to go with most couples have never talked about it. And maybe the woman's over there assuming, oh, I spit and he doesn't like it. Maybe he's actually like, wow, I actually find that way hotter. Right. So without the conversation, you don't know. So,
yeah. And I got asked a question of the day that I've never been asked. Have I ever tasted my own? And the answer is no, I never have. But it did make me think, I wonder if that have people, just out of curiosity. Because I mean, I highly recommend
you all do, because it is a really beautiful.
In my Aladdin costume, right?
So when I said to my boyfriend, I was like, I want you to like taste yourself. He was like, wait, what? Like he had like a major like block on that. But it is a really beautiful thing. It also helps you know how you taste, because I would also say a man's ejaculate varies. It tastes it depends on what their diet, their sleep, the vitamins they've taken. Like so many factors change the taste within one man. So that way you get to know. I mean, you don't have to like drink it, but like it is a very sexy, powerful thing to know how you taste. That's for a man or a woman.
I didn't think about it that way, because you could suggest, hey, this is what I'd like. I tasted my own. I sometimes I add a little salt, I add a little pepper, I add a little everything bagel, and now it tastes great. You know what I mean? You can do whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can do something like that. All right. Feel free, please, to send in your listener questions. You can send them to Stormy at lovedeeplab.com, or you can send them to me, Toby at marriagesupply.com. And Stormy, can you tell the folks about your free sex drive building guide that you got?
Yeah. So go ahead and shoot me an email, Stormy at lovedeeplab.com. We have like a 12-part personal development series that we created. So there's like 6 sexy topics and 6 more personal development topics. And the sex drive guide was one of them. And we're just gifting that to anyone so shoot me an email and put that in the subject, and I will send you the link to download the guide. And the guide is interactive journaling. There's also a video about sex drive, and then there is a meditation to support, as well as like some other podcast clips and stuff. But go ahead and check it out, and we'd love to have you shoot me an email, and I'll send it over to you.
Totally. And then follow Dr. Stormy on Instagram at DocStormy1. That's DocStormy1. On TikTok, which her TikToks are just amazing. Touchy subjects with 3 S's. And then Marriage Supplies on Instagram, as well as the.marriagesupply.com. Thank you guys for listening. We really appreciate it. Remember, knowledge is power. Sex is power.
And the world needs more of both.